We're still in rumor territory at this point. It has not been officially confirmed. The configurator has not been updated yet, but there's been a rumor spreading around across Reddit and from people that have sources within Tesla claiming that the standard range dual motor Model Y that Giga Texas is producing, yes with 4680 batteries, yes with a structural battery pack, with the 279-mile range will start at $60,000. I don't mean to brag or nothing, but if you've been keeping up with my videos or watching my podcasts or anything in the past few weeks, that was literally exactly what I thought it would be, but I think I have a good idea on how most of you are feeling about this. I'm probably gonna get 50 to 500 comments of people saying that's outrageously expensive, or I have a Model Y on order that costs less than that and gets better range, and Elon and Tesla are ignoring the true vision because the middle class is not going to be able to afford this vehicle. And I thought the structural pack and 4680s were supposed to help lower prices and lower costs, but now with them pricing it so expensive, I can't afford one and everyday people can't afford one, and this is gonna slow the transition to electric vehicles, right? Because most people aren't gonna be able to afford to spend $60,000 plus on an EV, and Tesla's just prioritizing shareholders and profit margins, and all they care about is money, and they seem to have completely neglected and abandoned the concept of making EVs more affordable so that they could have mass adoption. Yeah, I've been reading a lot of forums, Twitter threads, and community posts, and that basically summarizes, I think, what the general public thinks of that rumored price point. And I will just state from the beginning, I understand the frustration, okay? I've been in the market for a Tesla for basically the past 3 years, kind of just timing everything and hoping and waiting that prices would get better or range numbers would improve. And you know, not too long ago, we were saving up specifically for a Model Y, ideally for one from Giga Texas, but I was still coming from the mindset of the 4680 batteries and the structural pack will probably enable better range than what is currently offered from Fremont, and I didn't want to buy yesterday's technology. But the reason my expectations were in check, and the reason I was predicting for many months that the Model Y from Giga Texas would be expensive, and even though the standard range is not quite as cool as we were hoping it would be, the whole purpose of giving it the dual motor powertrain instead of single motor was to try to justify an overall higher cost, because I knew the powertrains in Teslas are really not that expensive relative to the battery, and the primary reason Tesla has decided to start with a standard range option instead of a long range or performance variant is specifically so that they can scale production faster. And to all the people saying something like I said at the beginning of the video of, wait, how is this supposed to help accelerate the transition? I can't afford this, most people can't afford this, this is crazy, this is so much more expensive. You're not understanding the reality of Tesla's situation. The fact that they're starting with a standard range option is specifically because far too many people want to buy Teslas right now. And don't get me wrong, I'm sick of having to convey the same message over and over again, but yes, Tesla has a substantial and significant demand problem, and it's not because there's a lacking of people ordering Teslas. It's not because some of you out there who can't afford one yet or are saving up and hoping for them to get cheaper, they're not missing out on sales because of people like you. They're actually struggling to keep up with current prices in production numbers, and that's why even though the current long-range Model Y, which is absurdly expensive right now and far more money than it ever was before, the wait time is still pushed out a year for their cheapest tier at 63 grand. If you want your wait time to be under a year, you gotta spend more than $63,000. And that's with yesterday's technology. That's with yesterday's specification of 2170 cells and 330 miles of range, which even when Tesla was selling that for $57,000, $58,000, me and my wife didn't really find it that great a deal, and we knew that something would be changing with the configurator in the near-term future. We just wanted to wait and see exactly what it was gonna be, but now, finding out that my suspicions were correct, that, well, okay, if Tesla can't meet the demand of vehicles at this price point, and they have to keep raising the price of the long-range Model Y, then we know the demand and the public interest in the Giga Texas model is just going to be even higher. So Tesla is actually, by design, trying to make the 4680 Model Y not seem like that great a deal. And I actually saw a ton of people in the comments and threads out there saying things like that, like, why wouldn't you go for long range? It's only $3,000 more and you get 50 miles more range. And of course, there's a ton of people that have put in deposits on their Model Y and locked in older pricing that would actually have to spend more to switch to a Giga Texas model because they locked in their price for $57 or $58 or $59,000. And this is exactly how Tesla avoids the Osborne effect, because they're worried about a bunch of people canceling on their Fremont orders, which creates a huge, vast logistics problem of, okay, hold on, now certain people's wait times has moved up, and there were people that were expecting their order to take 6 months, so they don't have the money ready for it yet, so you got more people canceling orders, and it just creates a big nightmare whenever you have a bunch of people modifying their order. And now that people are gonna realize that they would have to spend more money to switch to a vehicle with less range, there's probably not going to be too many cancellations, and Tesla wants every Model Y to have its designated market. If they were, for example, to do what a lot of people were hoping for and say, make a $50,000 Model Y that's standard range, yeah, that's like $10,000 or $13,000 cheaper than what a lot of people with Model Y orders are paying. So there would be massive cancellations and people would be like, oh wow, well, I can get the same model for $10,000 less, it's only 50 miles difference. Heck yeah, there would be a huge influx of demand and a ton of people that have been saving up for a Model Y that haven't put a reservation down because the long range was too expensive. So if they realized, oh wait, I can get one for $50K, the backlog would be even more absurdly long than it is right now. And that's not really an ideal situation either. If the alternative to a high price Model Y is a wait time of 3 to 5 years, everyone's just gonna be complaining about something else at that point. They're gonna be like, well, okay, why even bother buying one? In 5 years, there will be some other model I can get by then. What's the point of even locking in a price and putting down a non-refundable deposit if your vehicle's not gonna be ready for, you know, that long? And if Tesla was able to sell Model Ys for that cheaply, which I think because of how cheap it is to build these things, and we know Tesla has the best margins in the industry right now, they probably even could afford to sell the Model Y profitably for $50,000. Not as profitably as $60,000 for sure, but yeah. If they did that and there was so much demand for the Model Y that the wait time was pushed out 3 to 5 years, there would basically just be a ton of people taking delivery of these cars and then reselling them for substantially more than they paid because they know someone out there will be willing to pay it. It's so sought after. It's such a high in demand vehicle. That's what happens when the used market starts taking off. And we're already seeing that with the current wait times on Teslas, which are around a year, sometimes less. But yeah, if you go on the used market and look for a Tesla, especially with vehicles with low miles, you will have a hard time finding anything that sells for less than the price of a new vehicle. Most of them will actually cost more because they know you don't have a wait to worry about if you buy their specific inventory vehicles. So Tesla has a choice then. We can either have a demand backlog of 3 to 5 years, or we could have a bunch of scalpers taking delivery of our cars, reselling them for a profit, and then a bunch of random people are just gonna try to make a living out of buying up Teslas and reselling them. So Tesla's basically minimizing the amount of scalping that can go on with their product and say, okay, we don't want too many people ordering our vehicle because first of all, Giga Texas is not gonna be at a full run rate when it first opens. It's gonna be fairly low volume, so I think they're going to intentionally price the standard range Model Y at $60,000 because they know it's expensive. They know it's so close to the long range. They know there's a ton of people waiting on their Fremont Model Ys to show up, and they realize there probably won't be a huge surge in orders once the configurator goes live because it's honestly not that great a deal. But I don't think that means that the 4680 or the structural battery pack was a failure. I've seen a lot of people saying that, you know, battery day was a scam and the whole 4680 thing is completely useless because isn't the whole point of those batteries in the structural pack and the single piece castings, isn't all of that about lowering the cost of production? If that's your mindset, then I think you completely missed the entire purpose of battery day, and I encourage you to go back and watch it. Yes, there are cost savings. Yes, there are manufacturing benefits to going with the simplified structural pack and the single piece castings and the 4680 battery, but if you rewatch battery day, you will realize that the fundamental theme from start to end of that presentation was all about extreme scale. It was all about being able to build more vehicles, not necessarily sell the cheapest vehicles on the market, but their point was the cost of producing EVs would fall dramatically and it would start to go below the price of producing gas vehicles. I don't think we've necessarily reached that point yet, but we're definitely getting a lot closer, and Tesla showing stronger and stronger margins after each quarter that goes by is proof that Battery Day was accurate and is true, and they are following through on that mission. But you shouldn't be mad at Tesla for charging a lot for their current vehicles, even though it's frustrating. I get it. There's nothing more heartbreaking than saving up for your dream car and then finding out your dream car went up $3,000 in price overnight. I've been there, and I've reported on that news, and I know exactly how that feels, but it's the only logical thing for a business to do in a situation like this where they have no chance of catching up on demand anytime soon, and there's so much demand for their products. When supplies are limited, price goes up. Airlines do this, hotels do this. If you're running out of spaces and there's too much demand for your product or service, you raise the price to try to taper off demand. Otherwise, you're just gonna have super long wait times and super long lines outside your business. So if you're frustrated by the price, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you have to be more upset with the general market. The fact that there are tons of people out there paying these prices for Tesla's vehicles, and there's still a ton of people out there putting in their deposits now. And in a sense, because EV supplies are so limited and demand has grown so astronomically high, it's kind of like a fairly complex auction. It's like, if you're upset that Tesla's not willing to sell a Model Y to you for $50,000, it's because someone else is essentially outbidding you. The reason Tesla's comfortable charging those prices, as frustrating as it is, and I'm sure there's going to be a ton of hit pieces and articles and people complaining and bashing Tesla, shaking their fists going, how dare you charge that much for a vehicle, it'll still sell. Tesla knows every single one they build, there is a buyer for, and that person they're selling to is willing to pay more than you. So they know, essentially, they're gonna miss out on some people. It's almost intentional. They know they're pricing out part of the market because they can afford to. There's enough demand that they can lose people. They can have someone back out and say, nope, I can't buy a Tesla anymore. Now I gotta go with an ID4 or an Ioniq 5, or, Toyota just launched the BZ4X with up to, 250 miles of range, and it's starting at a much more reasonable price than the Model Y is. Yeah, the competition needs to be coming. I know everyone keeps saying, oh, the competition's gonna come after Tesla. Well, it hasn't been, and I really hope it does, because then maybe Tesla could catch up on their current demand backlog and start offering more competitive pricing. But that's the only situation where you're gonna see prices go down, is when there's not enough people ordering something. So if Tesla launches this new standard range Model Y and not very many people order it, then yeah, they will lower the price. But I don't think it's going to happen, because there's a ton of people out there still super interested in a 4680 Giga Texas built Model Y. From sources that talk to Tesla employees at Giga Texas, there have been talks about the charge curve of the 4680 being much better. So perhaps the cycle life is really good and the charging time is really good. I don't think it's the kind of battery that you can charge to 100% every day, but still, there's a fair share of advantages that may come along with the 4680 Model Y, and there's enough people out there that are like, yeah, I don't need 330 miles of range. I just want a well-built, well-constructed Model Y, and knowing it was built in Texas will probably attract some people, and there likely even will be some people that cancel their Fremont orders for a lower range, higher price model because they know quality control and the structural pack may have its own share of advantages. So if you're frustrated with Tesla's prices, be mad at the market for being willing to pay so much for these cars. Don't be mad at Tesla for trying to taper off demand, because they know they have something that is extremely sought after and they have nowhere close to the number of components or supplies they need to produce them. So that's the whole point of using less cells per vehicle, is so that they can scale up production faster, catch up on demand, and once they catch up on demand, that's when you can start to see prices going the other way. If Tesla had a demand problem and they were struggling to sell their vehicles, then they would have probably started with the long range. They would have made something that went even further and went 350 miles, and they would have included more cells per vehicle, but that's not the limiting factor right now. In fact, everything needs to be all hands on deck when it comes to producing the most amount of vehicles possible. That's what Giga Texas is optimized for from the ground up, and yes, that also results in the profit margins on Tesla's vehicles being incredibly good, which Tesla will now use that money to invest back into the business and build more factories with more efficient manufacturing techniques, and hopefully at some point Tesla will catch up with demand. That's when you can expect prices to go down, but at this point, seeing demand as crazy high as it is, I wouldn't expect it to be anytime soon, and I honestly think there's a decent chance that Tesla will never sell vehicles that are $25,000, because there very well may be 5 million, 10 million people a year willing to pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for their Tesla. And as long as there's someone in the world willing to pay more than you, Tesla's gonna be fine charging that much for their vehicles. So these high prices do not slow the transition transition to EVs. That would only be the case if we saw deliveries going down, but deliveries have not gone down. Deliveries have astronomically increased and continue to grow, so the transition is not slowing, it's just there's a lot of people willing to pay a lot of money for these cars. And because I had suspected this is how Tesla was going to price the standard range, and I figured that the 4680 Model Y was going to have a bunch of advantages, but it was starting to make sense in my brain. They're advantages for Tesla. They're not advantages for everyday people. That's what made us compromise with the Model 3 and realize that was the better buy, because, you know, if we kept waiting and just kept saving and taking all of your great donations and all of the AdSense we've made from these videos and saying, we'll keep putting it in the Tesla fund until we can afford a Model Y, but the Model Y prices keep growing, then this was going to be an indefinite saving thing, and it didn't feel like the value of the Model Y for us was getting any better. The range was getting worse, and the prices were getting higher. So I was like, yeah, I think we should just commit to a vehicle and lock in our price. So I'm so glad we ordered our Model 3 when we did, and I'm grateful for everyone supporting the channel over on Patreon and making that dream a reality. And I can't wait to take delivery in the next couple months, but I hope you guys can understand why Tesla is pricing the Model Y the way they are, and I appreciate you hearing me out. Take care. Have a great day.